Okay, this is the first song that none of us wrote. It's called Circling.
Okay, so let's start our today's presentations. Welcome to Animation and Game 5th semester projects. And yeah, this is the final presentation of your projects. And after this, there's another semester in the books. But before we can celebrate tonight at the Game Lab, so let's see our final presentations. And we're starting with this awesome game. So let's have fun, enjoy the show, and that's it.
Ich mache mal auf den, dass man das, was auch sieht, wenn man es kommt. Beautiful. All right. Welcome to our presentation. So, one thing that all combat in VR and motion-based action games, for that matter, have in common, one central flaw, is that there's no real physical feedback to anything, right? I shoot my gun, there's no recoil. I swing my sword, I don't hit anything. Ideally. So we thought, what could be an interesting solution to that problem? And one thing that we can simulate that has physical feedback is wind resistance. So in our VR game, Wind Weaver, you as the player can control the power of the wind with a swoosh of your magical cloak, a physical cloth that we attach to your VR controllers while playing. So let's take a look at our gameplay trailer. So, the team behind the production. I'm Johanna. I'm the vision keeper, tech artist, and game designer.
Hi, I'm Silas. I was the sound manager, the level designer, and the animator.
So, again, I'm Margarita, environmental artist and technical artist.
Hi, I'm Mia. I did the programming and production management for the team. I also want to give big thanks to the Labings for helping us out with technical stuff, and to our great soundies, Oleg and Chris.
So, all of the design of our game focuses and is based on two central design pillars. That is number one, the player experience of swoosh. Right, so emphasizing that chaotically fun physical activity of moving your cloak around, creating that feel of slight overpowerness for the player, that every move has impact, and creating decent gameplay pace with fluid movement and combat. And of course, number 2 is the central motif of wind. So we emphasized having the environment feel alive with wind and having high reactiveness to each of the players' wind emissions. Let's see how we did that.
First of all, players traversing through abundant monastery high in the mountains, overcoming obstacles and mystery animated pottery enemies. Environment of itself is inspired by those who live far high in the mountains with their culture that includes the wind not as only the nature, but as a part of a culture itself, with hollow cavities and holes being implemented to produce sound via wind itself. So it's not only about the nature, but also about how wind interacts with those cavities. And it's not only also about the musical instruments such as ocarinas or wind chimes, but architecture, householding instruments itself. For the environment production, we used several optimization techniques to make it optimized for VR. For example, modular assets, texture use, and elbow textures. We also used some techniques for landscape painting to make a variety using the same textures with a height map-based approaches, and combined both hand painting and procedural texturing.
So let's talk about the moveset. Because it's a motion-controlled game, we have a focus on special movesets, so you can move by leaning side to side like this. Of course, you can also just move with Joy-Con if that's your favorable movement style. You can jump very high by slamming your cloak down like this. You can glide around by stretching out your arms and T-posing a little, and you can release a big gust of wind by swinging your arms around. So you can flung away any inanimate and animate objects. And speaking of animate objects, we've got some enemies. They're all made of pottery, and one quality of pottery that we really like is that if you throw it against the wall, it crashes, it falls apart immediately. So all of our enemies only have 1 HP, but that doesn't mean that they're just trivial obstacles. We have 2 enemies. We have the little pot guy who runs at you and can only deal melee damage at very short ranges. There's a lot of them. You can have a lot of fun swooshing them around the level. And we have the big ocarina that will shoot projectiles at you from a way further distance than you can use your gust at. So you will have to get close first in order to deal any damage. So in terms of progression and level design, we took the approach of effectively continuous onboarding. So we onboard one mechanic here, for example, the glide, introduce that in a vacuum, and then introduce it with previously introduced mechanics like all of the pot enemies. They've been around before then, in an environment where you have to glide and fight them at the same time. And afterwards, we can introduce the next mechanic, in this case, the ocarina, and it's expected of the player to be able to use the glide as if it was walking at that point, because it comes natural. Using this approach, we can have a very large level where still around every corner, every segment feels like a new gameplay element. It doesn't get stagnant. It's never like a gameplay loop where you are, oh, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. It's always building on top of that. And because we have such a large level in the environment of hilly mountain monastery, we can have some cool things where you're like, oh, that segment over there, that's gonna be a level segment, I wanna go there. And when you're at the very end of the game, you can go back, look down from there and be, oh, I can see the entire level from here. I've been down there, this is my path.
So, what would be Windweaver without wind? So for our wind system, you can, shown here in our foliage, globally change intensity and direction for everything at once. And this is done completely without physics, without armatures. This is just shader vertex manipulation inside the material. And using the information of vertex paint that we assign to all of our models in Blender from 0 to 1, the distance to the pivot point of the object, and if wished individual mesh bounds, so for example that hanging foliage can swing more as well, we can calculate all of this inside one material. And of course, the player needs to have influence on that as well, right? So inside the same material, we interpolate between the player's wind direction and intensity and the global wind using masking that takes into consideration the transformation values of the player's wind projectiles.
So speaking of player interaction, we want to create mechanics that feel and react to what the player is doing. So how do we do that? We want the player to have like a defined like start of the action. So we started with like pressing the trigger, and then we collect the position and the time when you press the trigger. And then we want to have the player wants to have the ability to do like tiny wind blasts and big wind blasts. So in order to do that, we also need to collect the end position. And then we do that on the release there. Because otherwise we don't have how big our gesture in the end is, right? With these 2 points in space, we have the distance, how big the movement was. We also collect the time when you started and ended the movement. So with that, we also have how fast you did the movement in the end. And you also have 2 points in space, so you know which direction you did the movement in. With all that, we can translate that into the wind projectile itself in the game. So if you make the movement bigger, the projectile gets bigger. If you make it smaller, the impact gets smaller. If you do it faster, it flies faster. If you do it slower, it slows faster. And we need the direction to impact the objects in the game. And as you've seen in the trailer, Wind Weaver is like a very big game. So we needed to do some optimizations to keep the game running at 90 FPS, because on the VR headset, we rendered the game twice. We rendered for each eye. So we have a lot of enemies in some areas. So in order to keep the game running at 90 FPS, we did some loading zones, right? You go in there, you unload and load the game, like load the enemies in the game. Then they take up computing space when they're there, and when you leave it, we ignore them, and they don't take up computing space for us. Some other things we did in the game that helped us develop it, we had a central tuning area. We put that in the game instance. You can tune every single thing in the game there, and it's your one-stop shop to fix some stuff, to change some variables, you change how big the wind blast needs to be to react to your movement, all that stuff. Another small thing we did is we have some spawn points, and you can control with the keyboard where the player should spawn. That was very nice for quick debugging.
So, looking back at this project in the end, there have been some ups, there have been some downs. Let's start with the latter. One central problem that we faced during this project was a severe lack of communication, of organization, and overscope. Combine that with limited access to the hardware in our game lab for only roughly half the week. Switching of roles and overlapping departments and responsibilities. This project was a lot more stressful and cost us a lot more nerves than it really needed to have been. So, well, we need to tackle each of these. The most important one, I think, is overscope, because if you have the time for it, then you can usually solve all other problems that arise as well. But this, of course, has also been a great experience in other ways. It was the first time truly experimenting with VR in development for each of us. We had lots of creative brainstorming sessions, thinking of all the stupid little ways that we could use this mechanic. And ultimately, it's nice to have a proof of concept for the silly little idea of using cloak swooshing as a mechanic in-game. And ultimately, it's all quite worth it when you get to see the user testers having the time of their lives, making an idiot of themselves by swinging the cloak around. So, why don't you guys do the same and join us later at our booth, where we'll equip you with VR headset controls and a cloak so you can swoosh around and control the power of the winds. Thank you very much.
people closest to you can hurt you the most. So welcome to our presentation for Brother Blood, a 3D horror game set in the far futures, exploring the relationship between a brother and a sister, which is turning toxic over time. Let's start out with the team. My name is Amira. I was the art director as well as a writer for the project.
Hi, I'm Finn. I also was writer, 3D generalist, and technical artist.
Hi, I'm Anna. I was production manager, game designer, and sound designer.
I'm Mario. I was concept artist, 3D artist, and 3D animator.
I'm Elias, and I did some programming.
And we also want to say some special thanks to some people. Ole, who voiced our brother character in the game. My sister Ida, who voiced the sister in the game. A friend, Jano, who helped us with textures. And Leo, who did our music. Now, our game tells a story of two siblings who find themselves in this big abandoned facility, and the brother took part in a science experiment where he got mutilated. And now, of course, they try to find a cure for the brother to heal him. However, the brother now is kind of changed. He isn't the same as before, even though they love each other very much. The brother gets into a deadly rage when he gets triggered. So, of course, this ties in with our gameplay. The key feature of our game is having an NPC that you work together with, but he can also kill you, essentially.
And let's see how it looks in the game. And so right in the start, we just enter the room where we are going to meet our brother. And together with him, we want to proceed and get through the rooms like here in the vicinity right now. Like Finn already said, we need to work together. So to get through the facility, we want to open this door together because it's two switches. And in this case, an example, we cannot reach it on our own. So our brother will help us by giving us help to reach a platform above. Just simply launch us to the electric box so we can activate the elevator that you see on the right. And generally, the brother, like I already said, he has changed since the experiment, and we need to go, help him, guide him through the area. And in this case, he really does not like the light, so we need to tear him through the light, even though it's dangerous for us and for him. But that's just how it is. But luckily, there's also another way to get around these obstacles by just, in this case, disabling, like for example, the trigger or the reactor, and then proceeding. One thing our team really liked is snow, so we have that, and it looks nice. Thank you, Finn. And yeah, we already said that he can get angry and dangerous. So here in this case, he will transform because one of the triggers is triggering him. So we have to get around, hide, and run away from him because he will start to hunt you down when he sees you. But hiding doesn't always work for a long time because he will notice you at some point and then he will attack the hiding spot you are hiding. And after destruction, he will further hunt you down. But like I already mentioned, you can disable the triggers. So if you are smart, you can get around it fast enough and then have fun with your merry way.
All right, so designing this was quite a challenge because how do you create a companion that the player both cares about but also fears? For getting the player to care about them, the easiest way is to make them work together. But again, here the question is, how do you make a companion not too useful but also not useless? And the solution we came up with is to make him do very simple stuff on his own, while more complex things the player has to ask him to do. As for introducing the fear factor, the focal point of the game is to try to figure out how to not get the brother triggered by these reactors, so the player always feels on edge around him because we never know when he's gonna snap or not. Another thing we did, which is very common in the industry, but I don't think is as common in semester project, is we did a game design document. I highly recommend this for everyone because it is such a great source for keeping all your information together. However, don't be like me. Use short text and lots of pictures. You want this to be as readable as possible.
So some things that I think were important and for the programming itself or the technical implementation is, for us naturally, it was the NPC implementation and the navigation. It seems like similar things, but for me it felt like kind of different. The NPC for like the implementation behavior, it gets convoluted the more you add, and using these will result in, let's say, unnecessary things if you don't plan ahead. So if you do that, try to keep that in mind. And navigation-wise, if you just use the normal navigation mesh of Unity or whatever you have, it's going to work out fine. But trying to combine it with like off-mesh links and doing like things like the elevator here, just try to be aware of that. And it takes a whole new, basically new system you have to create yourself then. And together with like things like saving mechanics or the dialogue system, which will become now too, it is hard to keep track of. Yeah, in this case, this is something I wanted to do, and I think it kind of worked out fine. You see on the left is like the basic. I made a basic tool to create dialogue, and on the left you see like what it is. Basically, it's just a node with like different things that were important for our dialogue, and then I made it so the users could use them on the right. Like you see, Anna did the whole tree on the right, and it worked out fine for the game.
Finding the brother's look was a big challenge too, because we both wanted him to fulfill the role of the big scary cyber monster guy, but also like the friendly companion that you actually care for. Early on in the process we had a lot of disparate design concepts that we tried to narrow down over the process of production. However, like we couldn't seem, even after a lot of iteration and trying to narrow things down, couldn't seem to arrive at anything like that we were quite happy with. So in the end, we decided to just directly jump into the modeling stage and finish him up from there with little more than just a few mood boards and notes, which is then led to this final design that we arrived at with a happy medium between him looking quite human but still having weird grisly mechanical enhancements that also would then serve to make him, they would like change and move when he's enraged and serve to make the animations a little more interesting and differentiate between his states.
Yeah, as you might have seen in the gameplay trailer, the whole game is covered with this post-processing effect because we wanted to have a very specific atmosphere for the game. So yeah, that's one thing I worked on. It kind of pixelizes the image, and it also adds like this dither effect, which you can see very extremely here. And the whole idea of this look was to create something that on one hand looks kind of like nostalgic and familiar, but it's also kind of harsh and unforgiving, just like our story and how the relationship between brother and sister should be. I also made sure to add a lot of controls with the shader, which we can change at runtime. So for example, we can do stuff when the player gets hurt, the effect gets stronger and harsher, like here. So you have some feedback visually. Yeah, that's it. We used, obviously we use Git like every other game, but we also used Git to share our asset files themselves, which was very, very helpful to work together with the whole team. We used this very simple folder structure, which I put on Git for the other people. And the problem was that our Git got kind of large, and pulling and pushing took more and more time. So for future projects, we would definitely consider different services for this kind of stuff. And yeah.
So for production management, the team faced one main problem. Nobody had any time. So we had 1 or 2 days at most per week where we could actually work on the project. So I tried to make it my goal to find techniques or strategies which would make everything as stress-free and as flexible as possible, some of which ended up working out really well and some of which didn't at all, and I would like to share them. So First thing we did, we didn't have daily meetings. Instead, we just wrote updates each day. This works totally fine, and you still keep an overview of a project, and you save a lot of time. Just like the second thing is to schedule individual meetings. So instead of trying to deal with every issue, especially creative ones, as an entire team, which takes just way too much time, instead we made it a habit to schedule meetings between the people that need it, so they can take the time they need to talk about stuff, meanwhile saving the rest of the team a ton of time. Then the third thing I did, or didn't do quite as well, was milestones. So I only created very rough milestones because I didn't want to create a lot of pressure for the team. But this was actually a mistake. I should have done much more detailed milestones, not to create pressure, but much more to create a guideline. So instead of having like a big bucket of tasks that needs to be done until then, I should have made much more of a through line, so it would be easier to focus and work on something. Fourth thing, which I didn't do at the beginning, because again, I didn't want to stress everyone out, is by kind of hiding what we needed to do. But this is actually quite stressful if you don't know what's coming. So I recommend for everyone to get very visual overviews for everything. So you have the main tasks that need to be done, how they are dependent on each other and who does them. So everyone knows, okay, this is where we are at right now. And the last thing, I told everyone to just create bare minimum assets, which we can then implement and then polish later. However, of course, as an artist or creator, you don't want to create something that's so par. So all the assets ended up coming out quite polished, which, however, delayed then implementation. What I should have told them instead is to create placeholder assets, as in the very first step of the asset process that defines the most like basic shape that you can then work with. So we can already implement those and test everything, and then the artists get more time to polish everything. However, this is just like an idea. I haven't tested this yet, and I would like to do that in future projects.
So we hope we sparked your interest, and we would be more than glad to see you at our booth.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay, nice.
Is this working?
Yeah. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you are in a public transport and you have a guest on board? You see a dog and it's swinging around, it's maybe whining, and you ask yourself, what's going on inside their head? So this is exactly what Corgi Express is about. Welcome to our final presentation. Yes. Let's meet the team. I'm Amna Malik. I'm the production manager, storyboard artist, 2D animator, and I also did some 3D models.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm the storyboard artist. I was also 2D animator, the 3D artist, and also did the compositing and also the editing.
Hi, I'm Tabea. I was one of the concept artists and also one of the 2D animators.
Hi guys, I'm Ines. I was the character designer and also one of the 2D animators.
Hello, my name is Mi. I'm the art director and creative director. I also help out with the 2D environment. And we also have Daniel as our music and sound effect producer.
Okay, let's look at the story. The sweet, curious, and silly corgi named Nugget is excited for his very first train ride. But the train ride turns into a full-blown chaos as Nugget experiences various hallucinations caused by his overactive dog brain, while his owner Mabel doesn't notice a thing. So, will his sanity make it to the next stop? Let's find out by presenting our final animation. Okay, so let's take a look at the setting. And first of all, we have our real world, the train station. We were inspired by the very urban vibes of like New York with the large city and the skyscrapers. And we wanted it to also be very gloomy and rainy and a bit more desaturated, so it is a good contrast to our hallucinations. Here is some inspiration for our hallucination. We wanted them to be very saturated, very vibrant, and just make it seem very fun and what goes on in the very imaginative world of our corgi. And here you can see how this translated to our final product. On the one side, you see our first concepts, the first colors we had, and on the other side, you can see the final backgrounds that got then put into our product. And we also thought about the camera angles. For the part where it is rooted in reality, we had a very frontal, very static camera. And for the parts that were the hallucination, we had dynamic camera angles that really were there to keep our small corgi nugget as the main focus. And of course, we had these differences as well to show the difference between the two worlds and to use it for comedic timing as well.
So now I will introduce to you our lovely characters. So as you saw, our main character is Nugget. He's this little anxious corgi with a hyperactive imagination. It is the same imagination that fuels his actions and all these reactions. And we wanted his design to be understandable at first glance. So all his design is, and shape language is these very small circles, which are very cute, very vulnerable, with these sharp edges for the ears to show this kind of anxiousness. And we designed it with the next steps of the pipeline in mind. So we tried to optimize the shapes, optimize the color palette, and we made the expressions as exaggerated as possible so we could really convey the emotion of the story. Next we have Mabel, which is our corgi's owner. She's meant to be in contrast to our little Nugget corgi. So instead of being this anxious person, she's very aloof, she's very laid back. And we wanted to show these parallels that sometimes it happens that the dog looks like the owner. So we maintain these parallels in the buns. For example, they look like the corgi's tail. And we use the same shapes for both the corgi and the owner, as you can see here. And for the final design, as well as with the corgi, we maintain the shapes very clean, the silhouette very strong, so we could redraw it a lot of times, and it will be as easy for us as possible. And also we have the side character, which is our cat lady. We wanted to make it as clear as possible, this kind of stereotype of the grumpy old cat lady. So we put, for example, these details on the coat, or this bag of fish that she's carrying. And we also wanted these visual parallels. For example, the glasses turn into the cat's eyes, and all the colors are still kind of the same, both in the human form and the animal form.
Okay, let's move on to the production approach. First, I want to explain you the pipeline. So we have the one pipeline is the 2D character animation. The other one is the 3D modeling. And we worked at the same time, but because character 2D animation, frame by frame animation is very long, a long work, the 3D artist tries to join as soon as possible in the 2D department. And when the very first shot comes in, the very first animation shots are done, they will come together in the compositing, where the 2D animation and the 3D environment meets each other, and where the light setting will be fixed. Afterwards, afterwards it comes to the post process, where we correct and do the final timing. Yes, next. Yeah, first I want to explain you our animation pipeline, which is the key pose animation first, where we ensure our key poses, expression, dynamic poses. Afterwards, it comes into the in-between phase, where the key pose gets connected to each other, and then afterwards it gets cleaned up by our artists, where they take care that's on detail, that's on a model, and afterwards we color it. So, and to the same time, we did the 3D model, which is like a big train carriage with the train station in the background in the city. And underneath, you can see our shader development.
We also focused on having simple shapes in the train station and the train interior to really just convey the feeling of an ordinary place, to really contrast the afterwards hallucinations.
And the almost last steps is the compositing. Here's a shot of our animation, and as you can see, it's like a bunch of planes on top of each other, like creating this parallax movement and effect and kind of depth. Yes.
So with every project, it comes also down to management, and here is our management approach. We used various tools to ensure good and smooth teamwork flow. For our project visualizations, we use Miro and Canva. For our communication, we use Discord and WhatsApp mainly, and for our project organization, we use Notion and Miro, and also Google Drive for our file exchange. So for our team organization, we had we had two priority sections. For the planning and meetups of the teams, we prioritized regular meetings, let it be on campus or remotely. We wanted to have clear agendas and clear agreements after the meetings. Also having clear tasks with one required person, and also while also staying connected and having clear communication. Of course, like every project, we had our up and downs, but we tried our best. And also on the other side, we really wanted to have a visually strong and appealing animation with a great storytelling. And oftentimes we had the situation where we kind of had to wait out the scope or the quality of the project itself. So through communication, we came to a good consensus. Right, and also the animation underwent multiple user testings. We filtered out the most prominent feedback and implemented them into the animation progress. And also we had the scope always in mind. So our key takeaways looking back at the project, for me personally as a production manager for the first time, I realized that a big team requires a lot of planning, a lot of thinking ahead. Even though you don't see the project itself right now, you should try your best in planning towards having a finished piece. And also the communication is really key. Sometimes opinions differ, but that's not a problem. It's more the solution. We have to, we always strive to have a solution and come to a consensus. Why all that stress and time constraint? It's a semester project. We should not forget to have fun in this project. And looking back, we really created a project that we are proud of, and yes. So this was our final presentation, and see you at the booth. We're excited for you.
Links vom Pult stehen. Yep.
Willst du noch ein bisschen rüberrücken? Achso, okay, ich kann. are aliens living on a calm and peaceful planet, until one day humans came for a visit and they brought with them the end. But don't give up hope, because in this online co-op game, you will be surviving this apocalypse. Hello everyone, I'm Felix and I'm the creative director of this project.
Hello, my name is Ole. I'm the VFX generalist, the UI artist and the sound manager.
Hi, I'm Marina. I'm the prop and art artist and the environment artist.
I'm Leonie. I'm the character artist and tech artist.
I'm Sontje. I'm the programmer.
I'm Joshua. I'm the game/level designer and the production manager of the team. So you and your friends will get thrown right into this apocalypse. You start on the outside of the alien planet. You can pick up items and you can throw them around, but you can also pick up your friends and throw them around. You have a limited time to collect as many items as possible and bring them towards the bunker entrance. Afterwards, you will go inside the bunker. Here, you can use your items to fix problems or to maintain the electricity. It's important to maintain the electricity so a rescue signal can be sent.
Yeah, now getting into the art side, the biggest difference our game in the end had to our initial pitch was that we themed it alien style. So our character was actually the first asset we designed for our game that combined both our art style and this alien design. So for the characters, we started with silhouettes, which helped just iterate through a lot of different alien designs. How humanoid do we want to go? Then, kind of in conjunction with this, we did 3D mock-ups for also several of these silhouettes. This is important since it is a first-person multiplayer game, so it has to look at least somewhat decent, both in first and third person. And this is the example of the design we actually went with, but it was especially useful for the more alien parts where, for example, the arm was replaced by a tentacle coming in from the top right. And yeah, to combine this with our throwing mechanic. Then, once we had decided the general layout of our alien's limbs, we went into more detail of the what colors does the alien have, what patterns does it have, what fits into our flora, into our alien world. And additionally, since we are in an apocalypse and the aliens do have to venture outside during it, we also wanted to give them some kind of safety gear that is easily recognizable for what it is, but also fits into our world. In the end, we ended up with a fairly humanoid design since that made the whole throwing thing easier, and we went with a gas mask-inspired object in combination with our spore mushrooms.
Now, coming to the items, we have a variety of different items. All are designed to fit our alien world while still having their purpose somewhat recognizable. The cow and the milk item are the only exceptions because the idea is that the cows were actually stolen by the aliens from the humans, and the way they package milk into milk cartons is also something that the aliens copied. The items can all be collected, used, and otherwise consumed. They are found either outside or inside the bunker or need to be processed from a different item. All can be picked up and thrown and are either used for power supply, health regeneration, bunker maintenance, or other things. For example, the coffin that you can see is something that is dropped when your teammate dies. So to bring your teammate back, you need to bring the coffin to the revival machine and then revive them. Coming to the outside environment, we first explored how the alien planet and the outside environment could look like through concept art. We eventually decided we wanted to have the outside to be very vibrant in color, mostly purple, blue, and pink colors. And we wanted to add luminescent plants to be the primary light source to create a more otherworldly aesthetic. This was all dulled down and less saturated once the human invasion happened. With more of a reddish hue for the colors to create an overall threatening atmosphere and to have the entire environment bombed and destroyed. Then we created the assets in Blender, and this is how the finished environment looks like inside of Unity. On the bottom left you can see the lobby where you spawn as the little aliens, and at the bottom right side you can see the entrance to the bunker.
Yeah, then we come to the bunker. We wanted our bunker to have some kind of symbiotic relationship between the things our aliens made, the alien tech, and our planet's flora. So in a lot of these rooms, in a lot of concepts, you will see alien plants somehow involved in them, either as structural foundation, as you see in the main room. We have gigantic mushrooms as pillars for the different floors, or for example, in the kitchen, we have an alien plant as a food processor machine, and in the signal room, we have a mushroom that sends a gigantic signal. Additionally, since by the point we came to designing the bunker, we had already gone through several level design iterations, level blockout iterations. So a bunch of our concept art were actually overpaints over 3D screenshots out of Unity. And yeah, these are the final results implemented in Unity.
So to make the game more lively, we decided to include a lot of different VFX, for example, a shock effect or a poison cloud effect, or maybe even the suction effect to guide players where they need to throw the items. And the general approach was to take the concept art of either the effect itself or the emitting object, then deconstruct it into the most simple elements, and then try to rebuild it within the shader graph, the VFX graph. For example, we can see that here we just have a simple line of particles that are basically flowing, but if we look closer, we can see that they're actually emitted in a sort of volumetric area, which is the next step, and then we add a color. But we can also see that they're, for example, sort of angled, and if we add that, we get the final effect, which is, for example, this line of spore particles that are following themselves. Next up, we had the UI, and there we had this unique challenge where we had different kinds of damage effects that were applied to the player. And our approach to show that to the player was to first create a simple mock-up with an overpaint of the UI where we think the position would be the best. Once we were happy with that, we would move on to a secondary overpaint where we decided what kind of icons and general visuals would look the best. And once we were happy with that, I would go in and then create the final visuals, as you can see at the bottom. However, if you can, as you see at the bottom, it's a little bit difficult to understand what the dark green or the dark purple bar actually means in terms of damage applied. And for that, we have a secondary layer of information, which, for example, here we can see that we have this slime in our game, which would slow you down. And the actual visual for that, as you can see, is the sort of stretchy and sticky slime to show you that you're actually slowed. Or for the poison clouds, we have these little bubbles, which are both in terms of sound and in terms of visuals in the game. And this way we can show new players what the actual damage effect is via the visuals, whereas returning players can quickly just see the colors and know, okay, this is the slow or this is the poison that I'm applied with.
All right. Coming to our technical approach, we use pretty standard tools like Blender, Material Maker, Unity, and Git to make our game. And our biggest technical challenge was implementing the online multiplayer. And I did a lot of research in the beginning what tool we should use for that. And we also set ourselves the constraint that we wanted to use a free tool for that as a team. And I determined that from the available options of Mirror, Unity Netcode for game objects, and Fishnet, Fishnet was the best for us because it seemed to be the most performant. And also from a use test, like after having done the project, I think it's nicer to use than Unity's netcode for game objects, but that might just be personal preference. And then the other biggest technical challenge we had is that Unity has non-deterministic physics. So if I throw something on like the host and then try to replicate that to the clients, because of Unity's physics system, the objects will get out of sync even if I put in like the same inputs at the exact same positions. And yeah, that was one of the biggest technical challenges, and I kind of noticed that too late to really change our networking solution. But if I had to do this project over again, I would probably go with a different option, either using Unity's netcode for entities, because that has deterministic physics, or trying to go with photon fusion, which does have like a runtime fee cost from a certain amount of concurrent players onwards after publishing the game. But I think it might have been worth it to take that cost. Yeah, but if you're not making a physics-based networking game, I can recommend Fishnet. It's nice. And then also coming to our user testings, we had regular user testings, and like, of course it was important that we had those, especially at one of them we had like a big problem with our players being completely confused by the second phase of our game and not knowing what to do. And after that user testing, we felt kind of down and like our game was not working at all. But after like taking a deep breath and sleeping on it a night, we noticed we just needed a lot more player guidance, and then we added like tutorial phases and like these posters in our game to explain what stuff does. And now at the latest user testing, our players were able to play through the whole game, and yeah, they understood stuff. And also, since we had an online game, I can really recommend you, if you do an online multiplayer game, to do online user testings, since it's like available, and it worked out great for our team.
Yeah, for our planning, we only used Miro, which worked pretty well for us to have everything organized on one workspace. One thing we can recommend is having these type of physical calendars. We had one for each month with like little post-its that had important dates on them, and also a sticker where we are at right now. This kind of created a sense of urgency because we always knew how much days we have left. So yeah, we can recommend that. Our key takeaways, you hear it often and it's easier said than done, but don't overscope. It catched up to us as well. Keep it simple, keep it fun, and it will benefit your projects. And one of our biggest learnings was, as Sontje already told you, one of our user testings went kind of bad. And players didn't understand what they had to do at all. So we say analyze first and react later, because our initial reaction was kind of emotional and we thought we had to overthrow our whole design. We were kind of frustrated with the result. But if you analyze it, you have to see what the players are really missing, and most of the time you will realize that it's not as bad as you think, and it's maybe just little things that are missing to guide the players. So yeah, analyze first and react later. And now we hope you are ready for rescue. Visit us in Mensa and bring some friends to survive this apocalypse.
Do you know what I have been always wondering about? Just look at him. He's just too perfect, and I'm just sure he has to be hiding something from me. So let's take a look. Can you see it? Can you see it? Like his dark side, his shadow? Finally, I knew it. Light and shadow, perfection and dark side. This is what our game, The Shapes of Light, is all about. And to get you right into the world of our psychological horror puzzle game, let's start with the trailer. So we are the team Amygdala, and I'm Lisanne. I did the project in production management. I was also the art lead, did the story and some level design, also the design of the environment and our creature, the Watcher.
I'm Mariam, I'm the character artist.
I'm Robin. I did level and game design as well as 3D environment and assets.
I'm Malena. I'm the programmer and technical artist.
I'm Zed, and I'm the game director and the vision keeper.
And I'm Joshua, and I did the sounds and music for the game.
So our game tells a story about a man that confronts his childhood trauma. He grew up in a home of perfection. No negative emotions were allowed, so no anger, no fear, no sadness, no flaws at all. Always be the perfect child with the brightest smile. And this leads to a suppression of emotions and therefore also to a loss of self. And in our case, those dark emotions are literally represented in our game as your own shadow. Sadly, in our case, our character chose to end his life and is now in a world between life and death. In our game, you find an environment that represents those memories and emotions from his childhood. And you can also find the Watchers. You can see one here, those creepy eye monsters on the right side. They represent the parents of the character, and you are not allowed to show them your shadow, or else you will be consumed and punished. Then at the core of our game are the light puzzles. You can actually interact with your own shadow with the environment, and therefore manipulate lights and take on control.
Okay, let's jump right into it. Oops. One sec. Yeah, right. So here we are in the home of the character. And as we walk down this creepy corridor, we will encounter our first Watcher. And if we dare to show them the shadow, we will be forced back into the light. So, how do we get past them? By placing our shadow on those masks, we can then change the lights in the level. So the first puzzle is still relatively simple. But as you advance to the rest of the level and the rest of the home of the character, it will become more complicated. Now, to show you our other main mechanic, I disabled this Watcher here. So, here we have a silhouette puzzle, and you need to just, stand like this, and Now, the rest of level 1 you will have to figure out yourself. Let's take a quick look at level 2. Here, another cool mechanic is introduced, and that is those rotating light. Will you be able to figure out how to solve this? You will, well, have to figure it out yourself. Ta-da.
So for the character, the focus was on telling the story visually with the design. So the core of the character is his duality, and it was designed to feel very controlled and clean from the front to represent the version of himself he wants others to see. And in contrast to that, the back shows the side that is being suppressed and that he wants to hide, so it's using more chaotic and organic shapes to break the sense of control. Elements on the costume like belts and the fingers on the back are meant to suggest containment and pressure of the internal conflict. The color palette was kept bright to represent purity and perfection, and the small red accents like the tie and eyes are there to show the tension and presence of the suppressed side.
So for our level design, we decided to create 2 different levels, and we wanted to have 3 puzzles for each level. We decided to make the first one like a very simple one to introduce the players to our mechanics. Then we would have a big complicated version using those same mechanics, and end each level with a puzzle that has a twist on those established mechanics. So for level 1, we introduce you to pressing buttons with your shadow. We also try to immediately show you that buttons can in fact affect multiple lights at once. And then we introduce you to using your silhouette to your shadow to interact with silhouettes to solve the puzzles at the end. And then we will end with a twist on those mechanics, which you will have to find out yourself. In level 2, we follow the same pattern. We introduce you to rotating lights this time, as well as that you might now have to align multiple lights and cast multiple shadows at the same time to solve the puzzle.
For the music, I really wanted to capture this nightmarish feeling, and this is why I used a lot of like low drones and randomly scattered instruments, so you really feel stressed out. In the first level, it's more calm. In the second level, it's more structured and also has like a rise of tension over the areas of the level. For the sounds, I mixed realistic sounds with some surreal environment sounds, and also drowned everything in like way too much reverb, so it feels like nightmarish. Yeah, and I did the implementation for the sound in Fmod.
So for the design of our world, we started with some concept art. We wanted to go in a horror and surreal direction. For the first level, we tried to make it very brutalistic and simplistic to present the parent's sense for perfection. And the second one was more surrealistic and horror to represent the protagonist's inner feelings. We started with a block out, so we could, in Unity, so we could make sure that the layout works with our level layout and puzzle design. And we then made a visual guide to actually start creating the assets and place them in Unity, replacing the block out, and at the end added our lighting. For our assets, there were a couple of assets which were especially important, which you can see here. The masks are what you are pressing with your shadow, so we had to make sure that they can give feedback to the player. If they are interactable, then the eyes will glow, and secondly, they will rotate once pressed. And we made 2 variations, one if they turn a light on or off, and one if they rotate a light. And we also tried to give them a cool design to be like, represent the protagonists in our suppressed emotions by making them masks that show emotions.
Creepy, always watching, and adaptive. This was the base that I started with for the watchers. And at the beginning, I just created different possible versions in Blender to see what they could look like. That's what you see on the top. And then as a highlight and also like a big new learning for me were Blender's geometry node system. I created the veins and like also the animation with like the blood pulsing and breathing all in those geometry nodes. So this is what it looks like now.
The process of creating the 3D model started by sculpting everything in Blender, and after retopologizing, it was textured using Substance Painter. The hair was done by making custom texture maps with Blender's hair particle system and then placing the hair cards manually on the head to create the hairstyle. The rig was made by using Rigify and parenting new bones to for the coat deformation to the base rig, and the animations were taken from Mixamo and were retargeted to the Rigify rig. The code physics were set up in Unity by adding colliders to the legs and a cloth simulation to the bottom part of the code.
Now, for my technical approach this semester, I wanted to try and focus more on quick and rough prototypes instead of over-planning structure. This was good for the concept phase as we were able to test mechanics as they were being discussed. However, a big takeaway I had from that was to, well, throw away prototype code. I didn't entirely do that. I tried to extend it and ended up with very hard to debug code. Another thing I paid attention to more this semester was that I tried to create a good workflow with the artists and designers. I made sure nobody had to be afraid of Git and created video tutorials and tools so that they could confidently implement the scripts and I wouldn't need to become a bottleneck.
So how did we manage to do all that? We used Notion as our task tracking platform and also for our sprint planning. Then we used Miro for ideation and production and also just a general overview of it all. Then we also had a Discord server for our meetings and feedbacks. And we also used Google Sheets for like task overviews with a bit more detail in it. In general, we always had 1 week sprints and also 3 meetings each week. And in tougher times, we chose to introduce also dailies.
We try to have user testings pretty much every week, so we could get quick feedback for both the visuals and the puzzle design and puzzle difficulty. This way we could then adjust very quickly the puzzles to better fit what the players were experiencing, and while still already moving on to the next part of development.
And for the key takeaways, we basically learned that open communication is great. You should openly communicate about the game ideas and everything, so everyone is on the same vision and there is no miscommunication while development phase. And more, we had some work together sessions, so if anyone has any technical problems on anything, anyone is stuck in anything, we work together and help each other out. Then we did some prototype concept for the puzzle concepts, which were great at first, but then it was valuable from user testing, so we make them more interesting and help user to solve the puzzles easily a bit. Then for the future improvements, we're gonna focus on adding more complexity in the puzzles by adding swinging lights and some mirrors, and adding some more levels and ending it with a prototype proper ending scene, which can satisfy the users with a good cinematic. And that was our game. Now help us come in our booth to shape your light. Thank you.
As you might know, a magnet can never exist with only one pole. Breaking it always creates two smaller magnets. But what if somewhere far from here, a magnet didn't just split into parts, but into two small creatures of opposite polarity? This is the concept of our project, where magnetic polarity forms the basis of our gameplay. Poles Apart is a local co-op 2D platformer that focuses on teamwork and coordination through physics-based puzzles. Using attraction and repulsion, players must work together to manipulate magnetic objects and traverse an unstable mechanical world. And now we will show you our trailer. And with that, hello, I'm Melissa. I am the vision keeper and animator of this project.
I'm Jenny. I'm a tech artist and generalist.
Hi, I'm Luna. I am the game and level designer as well as tech artist.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm the art director, the product manager, concept, character, and prop artist.
Hi, I'm Rafa. Also, I'm the sound manager and environment artist. And also we have Jazz, who was our master student and game director, but he couldn't come here today. And also shout out to Parsa and Gilmore, who were our soundies for the project.
So the story of Poles Apart takes place on a mechanical planet that lost its balance when its core split apart. The narrative begins when our two main characters, Kita and Mina, wake up in an old laboratory. Surrounded by cables and broken pipes, they take their first steps through a world twisted by the polar imbalance. As they explore the laboratory, Kita and Mina notice that not everything reacts to them the same way. Because they have opposite polarities, the same object behaves differently depending on who interacts with it. What Mina can pull closer, Kita might push away, for example. Through these interactions, players gradually learn that instead of having interchangeable powers, each character has their own distinct role.
So in the beginning, you select your character, and then immediately, you have to use your power, and you can already see how it works. You have an aura around you, which affects every magnetic object in the level, or within the aura. Some objects you can push away, and some you pull closer to yourself. Some objects can only be interacted with by one person, for example this cable here, because if you would push it further into the wall, that wouldn't really make any sense. Then there are objects that interact with the player, like here, the negative jumping pads push the negative character upwards, while the positive ones slow them down. This is used throughout the levels to reach higher places and give the characters places only they can actually go to, reach at, and yeah, just vary the level design a bit. Then there's also the music, as you just heard in the game. It's mostly cozy, but has a slight hint of eeriness to it, which reflects the deeper themes that the story and overall game is meant to have.
For the character design, we decided to go for two simple but similar looking characters that represent the opposing charges between them. Mina is our positively charged character. They are bubbly and outgoing in comparison to Kita, who is our negatively charged character who behaves more diligent and determined. We also decided to represent some of their personality traits. That is why Mina has a brighter color scheme with rounded features, and Kita has a darker color scheme with sharper features.
For the environments, we're showing the lab where Kita and Mina are reborn. Mainly we focused on the mechanical and industrial theme of the factory, showing a clear structure of pipes combined with crevices such as vents to show more interest in the maze that they're exploring. All this combined with a parallax to help us with the sense of depth. Also, we wanted the environments to look gloomy, almost eerie, dreamlike, and lonely, as the world is broken. For this, we decided to blur out the backgrounds and add some animated clouds that helped with the illusion of depth in the end. And this helped because we wanted to put more focus on the foreground, as this would help with gameplay and clear visibility. For the colors of the backgrounds are mainly green hues followed by a yellow light that guides the player. For the props, we again went with a more mechanical design, as well as data bases as inspiration. There's also distinct color contrast, so we could show the polarity of the objects with a quick glance without focusing too much. And all the objects have a more rounded shape language, as that would connect with the players and have a more cohesive look in general.
For the design approach, we from the start prioritized gameplay and clarity first, designing 3 visually distinct areas that will gradually increase in complexity. The environment is built around the character's journey, trying to collect all the scattered core pieces to restore it once again. The kind of main idea of our project revolves around the theme of rebirth as the core breaks and brings life to a new form. The initial level designs also plan to introduce a boss and mini-boss encounter to reward the players with the missing core pieces. But over time, the kind of dreamy atmosphere became darker and more focused on the characters. While we also plan to introduce additional mechanics, we ultimately decided to focus on one single, more substantial level and reduce the overall areas from 3 to 1. Now for the finalized laboratory area, we introduced the player with the core mechanics as a tutorial level, followed by a second stage that increases in complexity. The kind of biggest challenge in our team was the technical implementation, as we all had limited programming experience. As a result, we decided to keep the mechanics simple while allowing the visual design to stand out.
As you already know, our core gameplay mechanic is magnetism, so each object has their own charge, and depending on the interaction, it either attracts or repels by the player. We also use a brief shader effect to show attraction or repulsion with the color and small area. And for the system, we created a custom script using Unity's 2D system, physics system. And one of our major challenges was actually the camera. Since our game is a local multiplayer, we had a problem where one character moving too far away from the other one will fall off screen. So we tried different solutions, including like static camera and split screen, but ended up going with the dynamic camera that zooms in based on the distance between the players and allows us to preserve the same screen experience for both players. For this, we used Pro Camera 2D plugin for Unity. And for our communication, we mainly used Discord. We shared our ideas on Miro. Most of the assets were drawn in Clip Studio Paint, and animations were done in Procreate, while we shared everything on the Google Drive. And of course, implementation was done using Unity, and we used GitHub as a version control.
For the methodology approach, we used a weekly sprint structure to break long-term goals into manageable tasks. We also divided our team into an art and programming group to improve our efficiency. We also held regular in-person meetings for brainstorming sessions and introduced anonymous retrospectives for feedback and honest discussions when any conflicts arose during the project.
Throughout the game, we of course held multiple user testings to figure out what worked with the game and what we still had to improve on. People especially liked the graphics, how the game looked. It was very concise. Furthermore, they liked the engaging gameplay, they liked the first level and the especially jumping pads, because defying physics is always fun. But of course, things we had to improve on were there as well. We had a couple of logical inconsistencies. Most of them we figured out in the end, but sadly not everything due to the limited programming experience and limited time. Furthermore, people wanted more difficult puzzles and overall more levels, which we later added. And they wanted more character interactions, which were also added in later levels to make it a bit more complex, to just showcase more of the differences between the two characters, as well as some minor bugs players found, which we tried to fix. And the last thing that people kind of had difficulties with was the visual feedback that the game gave in the beginning. We fixed that by implementing various shaders that show which objects are currently affected by your abilities, and also showcasing the range through the aura around the player when activating the ability.
And now for the key takeaways. Since we had a pretty tight schedule and a lot of work, the workload was not always balanced, so we had to make decisions quickly, as well as we had to be very flexible and adopt different approaches when something did not work out, as sadly sometimes it's the only way to move forward. And of course, transparency is very important, and it's better to address issues early on and be direct with each other to avoid confusion and delays in the project. And of course, come to our booth today. Our team and those little fellas would be happy to see you there. Please play our game.
So, hello everyone. So let me welcome you to our presentation of our little animation project, Little Wolf, which is an adaptation from the Epic the Musical. So, firstly, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Ronin, I'm the creative director.
I'm Ayen. I was the animation lead, and I also took care of the rigging and simulations.
I'm Annalena. I took care of sorry, of concept art, 3D character modeling, and animation.
Hi, I'm Bea. I was the environment artist, the lighting and shader artist, and I also took care of some animations.
Hi, I'm Luise. I worked as the project manager. I did concept art, character modeling, and I took care of some of the animation.
Hi, I'm Yasha. I also did animation as well as block out and some concept art.
As already said, our project is based on a song from the musical, Epic the Musical, written by Jorge Rivera Erranz, and it prominently features the song Little Wolf, and is an animation about the story of Telemachus.
There he is. It's our main character. He is the son of Odysseus, in case you're familiar with the Odyssey. And in this story, we follow his main journey of overcoming his struggles and facing fears and growing as a person, mainly.
All right, let's meet our main antagonist. This is Antinous. So, since we are set in a historic Greek period, we have a kingdom, and Telemachus, as our prince, also has a mother, the queen. And since his father, Odysseus, is missing, Antinous has found himself in the position of wanting to grab the throne for himself and tries to pursue the queen. Now, he doesn't do that gently. Instead, he is very forceful and tries to lure his way into a position of power through aggression, while trying to get rid of people in his way, and thus trying to confront Telemachus to secure his position of power.
As Annie already mentioned, we also have Penelope, who is the wife of Odysseus and the mother of Telemachus. She is also part of our story.
And lastly, we have Athena, the goddess of wisdom, who acts as a sort of a patron to the royal family, and has taken a little bit on a task to watch over Telemachus and see that he does not get himself into much trouble.
Okay, give me a second.
Fight, little wolf, fight, wanna entertain me. Bite, little wolf, bite, let's see how you take this. Strike, little wolf, strike, wanna be a man then. Fight, little wolf, fight, little wolf, fight. You've made your worst mistake here, might be your last one too. You'll have run out of bones to break when you and I are through. I'll teach you all the lessons your daddy never could. This cruel world doesn't give out presents just for being good. So die, little wolf, die. Don't you know it's vital? Fly, little wolf, fly. Or because you had to try, little wolf, try. Run away before you die, little wolf, die, little wolf, die.
Need some help?
What's going on here?
Is your plan to stand around,
I suggest you fight back.
I don't know how.
Uppercut him, now.
Whoa. How did I do that? This time now moving slow.
No, I just made your thoughts quick.
Whoa, that is so sick.
All right now, let's try this again. Fight, little wolf, fight. Show them that you've got some fight. Little wolf, fight. Take advantage now and strike. Little wolf, strike. Don't go down without a fight. Little wolf, fight. Little wolf. Oh, maybe I pushed you a bit too hard.
Ow. Go back and cry in your corner. Make sure your mother hears. If she won't choose a man to adorn her, will bring blood and tears.
So, as you can see, this is probably as you can see, you were only able to see a few snippets of the final animation. All the animations are done, everything is simulated, but we sadly weren't able to render everything in time. So we only had a few short cuts for you, and we filled the rest in with our animatic. But we are going to finish the animation, of course. But yeah, we're sadly not able to show you the full thing today.
As the story of the Odyssey is noted to be roughly set in the Dark Ages of Greek, we decided to take inspiration from there instead of what you usually know as ancient Greece with the classical marble structures and everything. We went more in the direction of the Messenian warrior culture and looked at what is preserved from that time and built our design for the environment and the characters also around what we know or think has been used there and is the design that has been used there. This is part of the environment that we're showing you, and we used a lot of decorative tiles and decorative elements on the walls and on the objects like the pillars and the throne based on what is preserved from around the time.
So the design pipeline, we decided for the entire look of the animation, we wanted to have a sort of 2D, 3D look. We started designing by making these sorts of vague blockouts in which we would decide on what sort of the design would look like, the clothes, the shape of it all. Then that would be given to a character designer who would use this to make an actual finished design, as well as the character turnaround, which they would then give to the sculptors and texture painters. We did it by using Marvelous Designer for the clothes. We used the MetaHuman rig as a base. On that, we sculpted the designs of the characters. But we then decided to add a painted 2D texture to give it that sort of not quite sleek, modern look, but make it more feel like a historic sort of painterly thing.
To achieve the look that we were going for, we wanted to have the more unnatural and like cleaner look of 3D animation mixed with the more traditional look of brush strokes, which is why we went for this hybrid texturing method. Unfortunately, you weren't able to enjoy it during our final animation for this this presentation today, but hopefully you see what we're trying to achieve. We started by painting in the normal maps these little, as you can see them, brush strokes, direct lighting in different ways, which gives them a really nice painterly finish. For areas like the face, we added more detailed painted textures, and when we combined them in the shading phase, we could achieve something like the image you see on the left. Yeah, together it created really nice detail, which, you know, hopefully you're going to be able to enjoy in the future.
Yeah, then let's just continue with the rigging pipeline. After I received the custom models from the modeling department, I then retopologized in Wrap and put the retopologized models with the MetaHuman topology into Maya and used the MetaPipe 3 plugin. And then I managed to kind of put the MetaHuman rigs onto our custom characters. Once that was done, the animation controls were nicely automatically assigned by the third version of that plugin. Previously, I had to manually do that, so that was pretty nice. And afterwards, we also wanted to have some hair physics and cloth simulation. For cloth simulation, we went into Marvelous Designer, where we simulated all the clothes for the characters, and we were able to always pin and also sometimes keyframe changes when that was required. And go back once. Oh. Exactly. And for the hair, I had to find a little bit of a more creative solution because I had essentially two problems to deal with. The first one was I needed physics, so I created a basic hair rig. And I also created a line of vertices that I then tied a cloth simulation to. And then I parented that hair rig to the cloth simulation. So I had hair that was simulated as clothing. And that worked pretty nicely. And it also worked with colliders. So that was also pretty cool. But the other problem was that I somehow needed a way to combine that rig with our alembics. Because we didn't have any rigs in Blender, I needed to find a different solution. I needed to find a different solution for that. And what I opted for in the end was I created a separate armature that consisted of a single bone that I placed inside of the center of the characters' heads. And that acted as a head root, and that head root was then parented to a vertex triangle on the alembic's head. And that way I could get all the transformations I needed, and the hair followed perfectly the character's movements, even without a rig.
Yeah. So lastly, let's talk about our pipeline. As Ayan already hinted at it, it gave us a little bit more trouble than we could manage in time. We started out with a relatively simple structure that got very obstructed over time. We got mixed up between different softwares, and especially like getting files or transferring files in between them and setting everything up ended up, yeah, just draining a lot of energy. It is very unfortunate since we had basically all the building blocks done, but last minute everything kind of crashed. So I would say we definitely learned a lot from that. Yeah, I mean, we had basic issues from the start, like for example, similar to one of the previous teams, we had issues with not being able to find common timelines, and that issue was just never really able to be solved until the end. And yeah, aside from that, obviously, yeah, communication issues, all kind of stuff. Yeah, we're definitely gonna do an in-depth autopsy of that for the benefit of our team. Still, we got to all try out new pipelines, new softwares, and learn a lot from it. And Bea's gonna say some last words about everything.
Maybe, like Telemachus, we faced a great challenge, and in some perspectives we might have lost a bit, but on the other hand, we've also discovered a lot about ourselves, about our strengths and weaknesses, and also maybe about our potential and what we could do in the future with what we learned here.
So all in all, thank you for your time, and yeah, enjoy all of the rest of the presentation. Everyone did an incredible job, and we also got a lot of support, even if it doesn't show, unfortunately, towards the end. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll do a short break until 11:30. See you then. All right, please get back to your seats. Presentations are continuing. Please get back to your seats.
Sit down. Check, check. Check, check, check. Yeah, you gotta hold it like this.
There's nothing on the. How do we do it? All right, all right. Yeah, we need to stay in between the combo. Please go here. It makes sense for me to be here. I can't be behind the line. Okay, we're good. I hope you enjoyed our trailer for our 5th semester project, Blob the Klecks, a 3D adventure platformer portraying the absurd adventures of the stray cat Klecks, made by
us. I'm Alejandro, I'm the vision keeper as well as the main game designer and level designer, and also do a lot of the 3D assets.
I'm Elena, I'm project manager, programmer, and shader artist.
I'm Laura, I'm the art director, concept artist, and asset artist.
And I'm Julian, another programmer, the narrative designer, and another level designer. Now, what is this game about? Well, the gameplay premise is simple. You play as a cat doing cat stuff, which allows you to get tons of silly interactions with the environment. Explore and platform your way around the different locations of Katzburg, mess with the locals, and solve puzzles to progress in the level. But, of course, what will always remain at the center of it all is Klecks herself.
Blob the Klecks is now more than a 2nd and 5th semester project. Now it's a commercial one. For the first time, we had to think beyond the semester projects and consider things like marketability and legal aspects while founding a company. On one hand, this makes the semester less stressful because we knew the exhibition wouldn't be our end goal of the project. On the other hand, the stakes are much, much higher now. So we have to build a project that lasts. We have to make something that's sustainable for more than 3 months without ripping our hair out. I'm sure we've all learned the hard way what an unmaintained work structure can do over time, and we didn't want to repeat the same mistakes again. So from the start, we wanted to be more thoughtful about how everything should be set up. We put a lot of effort into making a clear work structure, things like naming conventions, folder structures, and procedures. At first, it might feel tedious, but it will definitely save us a lot of time later on. Oh, and everyone's involved in working with Unity. And so understanding how all things are actually used in the pipeline later on makes communication a lot easier because everyone understands what's needed and why. So once we had a structure set in place, it obviously affected how we built things, including our design approach. And we decided to work with modular assets, which means making smaller building pieces that we could easily assemble and reuse in engine.
This base philosophy was also seen in the NPCs. We built them out of a variety of simple pieces for us to easily and quickly create new, unique people inside the engine directly. This, in future also, in theory, allows us to easily expand on the repertoire of NPCs we can create.
Of course, we also thought about modularity when we designed our backend. For example, we have every major component of the game in its own scene, so we can work on them separately without creating merge conflicts all the time, which we then, if we want it all to come together, open additively. Then for level designers, we have a focus on creating intuitive tools for all the game mechanics, so they have an easier time assembling the levels and customizing the values of every component of them. And then we are very open to use external assets like Yarn Spinner, for example, which we use for all of our dialogue. Because we think that they can save a lot of trouble and time during development that we can then use for other things.
As a team, we were also aware that one of our core strengths was always communication. It was very important to us that each team member not only felt comfortable enough to bring up concerns whenever they saw ones, but also to pitch in their own ideas whenever they had any. In addition to that, with the publisher now in the picture for us, it also meant that all our managerial roles and tasks suddenly grew in complexity greatly. This meant that our daily meetings, as well as our sprint plannings over Jira, were much more important than ever.
And with that, we would like to actually show you a little bit of our game, of our first level. Currently, we have about 20 minutes playtime total from the semester. This is the first one. So Click starts out here, walk around. You can see he's very slinky. He also likes to look at the camera. We'll continue on here. As you can see, there's little pebbles. Those are our collectibles, kibble, cat kibble, little snacks for him. I'll continue on here. There's a bird. Maybe we can look at him. It seems that he doesn't want to talk to Clex. So we'll continue on. It seems that we're supposed to go up here, but there's nothing to jump on. So we can actually open this parasol. And there it is. And we shall continue. There you go. Jump, jump. Let's go. And there. Clex can actually go a little bit faster there. Maybe do a little spin. And there's that bird again, actually. And he seems to have stolen something this time. There's this little fuse box that's sparking. Maybe we can get it back from him? There you go. And Clex can actually go and fix it because he's a nice little guy and be rewarded. And then we continue on with the level. And that's it for now. You can see more if you come back to play later. Production for us won't actually stop, but with the end of the semester project, we actually have the opportunity to reflect on what's happened so far.
We knew that we wanted to expand on the original prototype greatly, but the exact fashion, the exact way we wanted to do that was never fully pinned down. One of our greatest issues, for example, was that we weren't unsure really of how much platforming to how much adventuring we actually wanted to do in the game. This led to slightly differing views of what the game was supposed to be, which, while not too great, made that each discussion was in general hard to pin down exactly what we wanted to do. Concise decisions took long, and our production time thus got slower. Due to this, we intend to, in future, try to do more internal genre exploration so that we all have the same basis on which we can make our discussions.
So as you saw, our main focus on this time around was actually efficiency in our pipeline, because we identified our main bottleneck back in the second semester prototype, and that is level design, because conceptually Blob the Clex needs a lot of content, a lot of locations, a lot of back and forth to see if ideas actually stick. So essentially, we want to make every other part of the production as smooth as possible so we can prototype and have stuff ready to test as soon as we can. Now, another thing that we have to account for is stuff that we didn't account for, because of course, with such a longer-term project, longer-term commitment, there's always something that can come up. For example, technical issues. Currently, we have just an example, Unity crashes if we add colliders to our trees because there's a bug in the current version. But also, of course, personal stuff. We have a year to plan and still a lot of studies to do and just things to think about. Now, we're in kind of a strange stage where it's a lot for a semester project, and we're happy with that, but it's not quite where we would want it to be for a vertical size of the actual product. Still, we have a very solid basis, we think, production-wise, so our next steps are definitely going to be content and focusing on the visuals and actual art direction now that we have the chance to implement it really quickly. So if you would like to check out our progress, you can go to our booth in the Mensa later.
Okay, sorry for the scuff. We had a few technical challenges with the presentation, but now it's online. So, have you ever felt the urge to play more D&D? To meet up with your friends and immerse yourself in a dynamic world with rich lore that reacts to you and your choices, regardless of how crazy they might be. We are Whisker Wave Chronicles, a dedicated team that aims to bridge the gap between live tabletop and video games. I'm Rebecca, the Vision Keeper, programmer, and game designer.
I'm Blight, and I did 2D concept art and also 3D art later on. Also, Eop was one of our directors. He was a tech director for us.
I'm Josephine. I assisted in project management. I did the textures and also the FX for the characters.
Hello, I'm Marta, and I'm the art director.
And hello, I'm Sophie. I'm 2D character artist and a 3D generalist. And next, we have our Regant animator, Emmanuel Edward, our environmental sound designer, Mark Daniel Dillmann, and Amadeus Lorenz for our music.
Join with your companions and explore the world of Thera in a story of courage and sacrifice, friendship and betrayal, and the ultimate pursuit of freedom. Black ether is spreading across the world, corrupting everything in its path. Be the force that stands against oppression, or welcome temptation's dark embrace and ascend to divinity. Having lived your entire life on a remote island, you must now embark on a journey to unknown lands, to uncover a secret plot that threatens the future of the Therian race. Let the dice forge your path, and your conscience forge your future.
Now, let's get into the gameplay. We start on an island on this cliff with our main character, Freya. Now, on this beautiful day, she goes for a walk on this cliff, and now, oh, how will she get up there? Let's do a perception check. With this, you can roll the dice and see if you succeed. And yes, perfect. Now the boulder is gone and you can move forward. Next, she's a cat, a very flat cat. She can just jump that cliff and even the next one without even needing to make a check. And oh, what is that? I guess if you come to our come to our booth, you can see that for yourself.
These are the 4 pillars that guide our design philosophy. Just like in a tabletop session, we want you to write your story. That includes not only a world that dynamically adapts to your choices, but also game mechanics that support and account for various player types. You decide how you play the game. We aim to achieve this by implementing procedural logic and interacting with and listening to our players. We live by the motto, if you can think of it, you should be able to do it. Systems like dice rolls, skill checks and challenges, and different approaches to solving problems together with your friend are the core of the tabletop experience. People love D&D for a reason. We want to give them the opportunity to interact with and expand our game beyond the bounds of a video game.
Now, let's see the character design approach. This game is going on already a little longer, so the characters were already established. So at first we just started with understanding them, understanding the lore, asking questions, and when we got to a point where we could move on, we come to the character mood boards to use the knowledge we have to kind of find the design for them. And then to the concept phase, where we iterated a lot to find the design that really fits the characters and that will also later fit our game. And even when we continue that project, that will still fit all the future game. Then next, the typical workflow, we go to sculpting using ZBrush or Gnomon Sculpt, then do the retopology in Blender using tools like ZRemesher or RetopOflow. Then we rig it, create textures and haircuts and Substance Beta, and when we have everything ready, we can bring everything together.
So the main characters weren't the only characters we implemented in our game. We also made a creature design. This is our siren. She represents ether and is made out of it. And her main drive is basically to lure in other beings and feed off their ether core. She specializes therefore in luring and deception, and the human anatomy you see here is all artificial. It's not organic. She just imitates this and therefore lures in others and feeds off of them. She's meant to symbolize that everything has a dark side, even ether itself. And we approached her in the same way. We started with concepts and asking questions, and later on proceeded to have like a final 3D sculpt.
For our environmental design, we leaned towards Kina Bridge of Spirit as our key art. We really enjoy the stylized textures and also the level of detail. No matter what, for this semester's vertical slice, we highly depended on third-party assets. So we decided to blend our models with those that we plan to implement. We always kept in mind to create the meshes with the level of detail of Kina in mind, so that we later can adapt the style of our environment that we already built easily via changing textures onto the already existed meshes. The lighting should appear natural and fresh and highlight the color palette. For our color palette, we also overall decided for neutral and earthy tones that are not too saturated. We abstained from using blue and purple. In the world building, the colors blue and purple are indicators for the presence of ether. If it shows up in the game, it always should indicate some connection to ether.
In our game, you can also find two main buildings we implemented, and we went for a building that serves the purpose of a mausoleum and also a ruined lighthouse, which you can see later. For the mausoleum, you can see it here, we oriented ourselves around like a Gothic kind of architecture style. We chose this on purpose because the mausoleum was built during a time where the Therian nations weren't like there yet. The humans were still in the world and were still ruling, and so they also built this this one you can see here. The contrast is a very high contrast to the Syrian buildings we have. You can see it here. The mausoleum is Gothic style, much detail, and on the right side you can see our ruined lighthouse, which was built by the feline nation, and they go for more simplistic shapes, and this is why we chose those two as an example for our scene. We also got some nice music from our soundies and also some sound effects. We got music and oriented ourselves for like an orchestral and fantastical vision, and also ambient sounds, which are like a very good example for our ether atmosphere. And also we started for our future vision with voice acting, because this will probably take a lot of time, so we already searched for good voice actors for our main characters. We made auditions and also recorded already some lines. This serves the purpose for like a higher level of immersion for the players, so you don't have to read the entire dialogue yourself, you can just listen to all their voices. Now you can listen to some example tracks. Going on to some ambient sounds. And finally, you can listen to our narrator's voice.
Across the sea, you see the building that was just encased in light, like a beacon in the darkness.
Okay. People like to roll dice and make them pretty. In every user testing we did, the features that provided direct points of contact with the world were the most well received. Our skill check system allows the player to directly interact and approach problems from different angles, leading to unique resolutions that foster a roleplay spirit. So why not expand on this and include more elements from D&D, like skill challenges, for example? Based on user feedback, we want to design challenges that require quick thinking, cooperation, and ingenuity, leading to unexpected outcomes. We believe that this will further capture the chaotic energy that the average tabletop session includes. Now let's take a look at the technical side of our design. Yeah. Your experience when throwing the dice is critical to our game. So we wanted it to feel natural, but also quick and high energy, and we wanted it to be dynamic. We utilized real physics simulations to ensure that the dice react to how you throw them and results are truly random. While implementing these systems, it was important to us to consider future design goals and ensure that features were modular and expandable. As an example, this system automatically maps dice face normals and that can detect different dice, not just d20s.
Another major challenge for our technical approach was all our characters are completely covered in fur. We initially considered fully sculpted fur, but the result didn't match our aimed level of detail. So we chose a hybrid solution using hair cards for parts like hairstyles and whiskers, and a shell-layered shader for the body hair. To adapt to the character's anatomy, the shell-layered shader has a custom control texture that you can see on the left side that via color channels controls different parameters. For example, the black ones mask the fur completely so that there's no fur growing in those areas, while the blue one defines the space between the layers that affects the length of the fur on that body part. Our development approach was following a classic agile project management. We had daily updates, weekly overviews, and also did the monthly sprint review. The project had a huge scope, and also that we wanted to use assets and scripts in long term limited our amount of quick solutions that we can let into. The project's lifespan also expands beyond the semester project. Initial concept already was there prior the semester, and we plan to continue on the semester project. To cope with that scope, we collaborated with contributors from an elective, and also with one external from the prior team. The support they gave us did not touch the core features, but still was essential for this semester project's vertical slice. Our key takeaways are that we learned a lot. Planning for a project, that amount of scope, and also that lifespan was a completely new experience. Some of our learnings were that we had to start off very strong. We pre-planned how to introduce new members into our already strong and rich world building, and also did a game jam to start into production with a high level of collaboration. We learned that clear workflows are very important. We have many interfacts between design, tech art, and also scripting. And to optimize the handovers and the communication, we had to set clear workflows to avoid duplicated work. Also, we experienced that our team, with including students of bachelor semesters, master backgrounds, and also externals, we had to clarify individual dedication and also available work hours in the week. That made it way more easy for us to plan a realistic scope that we can handle.
As Josie mentioned, this project has existed for a while. We've done a lot of word building, and a lot of people have helped us along the way. So we wanted to give a shout out to everyone that's contributed to the project so far. Thank you very much for dedicating your time.
Quiet, please. Out of the corner of her eye, behind the fence of a playground, something has caught a young girl's interest. This is our animation blue tent. Let's just start with the team. I'm Timmy. I was the vision keeper. I also did the storyboard and the layout, and I was also responsible for the sound managing.
I'm Alyssa. My main role was tech artist, and I also was the environment artist, 3D artist, and did the lighting for our animation.
Hello, I'm Eva. I was main character artist and I also did animation.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm the production manager of the team. I was also animator, was responsible for the rigging and anything pipeline related with rendering and everything else.
The music was done by Fabian, who's sadly not here, and the compositing and the SFX was made by me.
I'll just say we watched the animation. So to give you a little bit more background about the story, you might wonder why I wanted to make this animation about a young girl who interacts with the homeless she comes across. And the answer is that I went to Japan last year, and there I visited an exhibition that included this photography series called The 10-Foot Square Hut, made by Kengo Noguchi. And he documented the lives of people who live in these self-constructed makeshift homes in the margins of the city. And these photos just really stuck with me. They made me think a lot about the structures of the city that I live in, and spaces and people we don't really see, maybe purposefully even don't want to look at. And I just wanted to represent all of these thoughts in this animation, and with May, who interacts with all of this with, I think, a bit more curiosity and liveliness than most of us would. Yeah.
So let's meet our characters, and maybe as you've noticed, these tents are mainly consistent of these blue tarps. So figuring out a color to represent homelessness within our animation was easy, blue. Now we also have the opposite of homelessness, which is having a home, living in a home, and the society that lives in homes. And well, if that's the opposite of homelessness and blue represents homelessness, orange represents home society. May wears both. She is mainly orange as she lives in a home, and has blue accent colors because she's transitioning into homelessness more or less during the animation. Her colors are kept fairly bright to contrast and differentiate her from the background children, which represent the part of society that chooses to look away or simply does not notice homelessness, so they're kept in the dark. Their parents, which are unseen, represent the part of society that actively try to go against these people. And in our animation, they make the call to, well, get both tents removed. Okay, so now, how did we bring the characters to life? So since we wanted to have multiple characters in the scene, I decided to use Autorig Pro, which is very efficient, and we use it as a base rig and add it upon. One feature that we had that we really wanted to do, I don't know if you have seen it, is changing the socks over the time. So she is more transitioning into the homeless situation. She's getting more rough, not that perfect picture girl anymore. So yeah, we wanted to do that, and we used that with blend shapes. One more thing we did, of course, was corrective shape keys, also with blend shapes. For example, for the trousers, you saw a lot of sitting poses or kneeling poses that May did, so we needed to correct this as well. Furthermore, I don't know if you're aware of this, possibility. You can have animated controllers. What is that? So, for example, as you see, we have the hand controller closing in as a fist, and this is just controlled by one single controller. How does it work? So basically, I connected an animation which has this pose, and however it closes, I animate it, and I connected it to the controller. So we had more efficient use of the controllers, don't always have to select all the singular bones, which made it very easy to animate. And yeah, of course, May is a very bouncy character. We also wanted to present that in the hair. So we used stem tracks, as most teams are mostly aware of, to have this very flowy action, to not have to manually animate it, and that made it really easy.
Now let's talk about the beautiful environment we had. So of course it plays in Japan. In Japan, urban areas are very dense, have like lots of little small things, and that's what we aimed for, but due to our limited time frame, it was not quite as possible as we hoped for. But this is how far we've got. We have, like, on the left you can see the general overview of the whole playground, with the tent there being, and the houses for the background. And at the bottom left you also see the HDRIs we use for lighting, as well as the general environment, and showing the progress of the day, as you have seen, as it plays on 2 days. And next up we have the general setup for all the shaders. So we've done everything procedurally within Blender, which was amazing, and every material has had like a general setup. At the top you can see the gradients, so every object had a gradient from the bottom up to make it more like artistic, looks nicer. And we also had color ramps for the general color so that everyone could edit it, and lastly bump normals with Voronoi noises, as well as for the color, of course. Of course, this was only the general setup. Sometimes you go a little bit overboard and have fun and set up whole other systems for trees. It can get a little bit more chaotic there, but at the end result we could have also had moss and other stuff and lots of different options for bark. And lastly, the big other different setup we had is for glass, because you need transparency, and as we've used Eevee and not cycles for with ray tracing, we used Eevee with ray tracing, we had to have other different node setups for ambient occlusion, refraction, and also transparency.
Okay, so how did we even do this? We mainly communicate over Discord. All of you are aware with that, and we use the basic pipeline steps that most of you use: Miro, Procreate, Krita, Blender. But one thing or two things I can really recommend, for example, what I already mentioned, is AutoRig Pro. It made the use very efficient and very fast, so we can animate earlier. The other thing that we used, the both of us, Eva and I, was animation layers. I don't know any Maya animators in the room. Animation layers is basically you can animate in layers how you also draw in most softwares in layers. And that is kind of doable in Blender with the NLA editor, but it's very confusing, so I can recommend the animation layers add-on. It makes it really intuitive, so I can really recommend it. Then further on, compositing in DaVinci, and if you ever don't have a soundy for your team and you want to composite sound yourself, Alyssa used Reaper as far as okay, perfect. Reaper, which was very good in the pipeline step, and yeah. For all the organization, I really like planning over Notion. We did sprints, sprint reviews, and roadmaps, as well as dailies, but in written form, since we all had different times where we wanted to work, and yeah. And the most important thing that I think we can all agree on, definitely, is using Git for animation is really nice, especially because you can version control, especially if you use linking. Because through linking, we could all work simultaneously, and when you update stuff, you don't want to mess anything up. So you need version control for that, and that makes it really, really good and efficient as well. Okay.
So my and Eva's personal goal in this project was to participate the first time in animation this semester, because before we have only done games. So we wanted to experience the crunch, the pipeline, and everything that comes with it. But you know, if you have very good communication and a very good tracking of your task, it sometimes doesn't happen. That is also possible.
Yeah, just catch you up on that. I gotta say, as a production manager, to manage this team was really nice, because the communication was there, and this proved us that with a great communication, great teamwork makes the dream work, because we love to work together and to just update us, and we were always supporting each other, so that was really nice.
Sorry. Of course, procedural workflow. During the modeling of the environment and everything, we used as much as procedural as possible, like modifiers and, of course, the shaders that you have seen, to ease and also be able to change everything without damaging topology or anything else, to make it easy and to make a very easy workflow just in general.
Also, a big time saver was not creating each kit individually and rigging each kit individually, but having created May and then rigging her, and then just using blend shapes, creating other faces and other textures for all the background children, because they're also not key characters. It was very nice to just save time on that.
Yeah, and I think this has been mentioned a lot already, but I think vision keepers always have really big ambitions for their projects, but you always have to keep in mind that you only have one semester, you only have a small team, so you really have to adjust your scope to those limitations, so you have a comfortable production for everybody and also the best possible product in the end. You can. So yeah, that was our presentation. If you want to see our animation again, come join us at our booth. We have stickers, and the fast ones also get a piece of cake. Yeah.
times, it's easy to find yourself wishing for a simpler world. A world where you can clearly tell right and wrong apart, or even better, if someone else does it for you. In the world of Hate the Sin, our 3D narrative deduction game, this authority exists. Moreover, it's you. You are a priest that listens to his confessions. It identifies their sins and delivers absolution. Absolution often means death.
Hi, so we are the team Saintology, and we are the team standing behind this project. Angela was our game designer and writer. Lisa is our programmer and UI designer. We also had two wonderful masters, Sergey and Lucius, who divided the art director role and game director role. Mara was our freelance character artist. We also had sound designer Philip, and I was responsible for environment art and project and sound management.
Okay, so now that we have introduced ourselves, I would go over to the gameplay and show you what the first round of our game would look like. So we are at a confession booth talking to confessants, and this is the first confessant we have. If we look down to our lab, we can see the Holy Bible. In this game, this is essentially our manual. It shows the key features of our game. For example, on this page, you can see the 7 sins listed. If you're not familiar with the concept, you can read up on them here. There are also more pages to that, but right now we will look at the first page, which basically says sin is a contagious disease. It is my duty to remove sin from our community, even when death is the only cure. So what does that mean basically? It means we have to free the confessants of their sin. So how do we do this? We have to find out what they sinned of, and then shoot them with the corresponding sin bullet, essentially freeing them in the afterlife. So for example, if we think that the character is a very greedy person, we shoot them with the greed bullet, and if we are right, we freed them. But we can also lie wrong, and then we are essentially a murderer. We can also pass them the cauldron, the flesh of Jesus, if we think they are innocent, and then we let them go. So in order to pass the right judgment, we have to find more about the character. So we will talk to Sister Meredith right now. She says, "Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. I've broken my holy vow of chastity." So that might already give some clues. We can now ask more surface level questions like, why did you do it? Or does your convent know? Or we can ask more in-depth questions, but we can only choose one of them, and it takes action points, so you should beforehand know what the best option would be. So right now I'm choosing, so someone's been ringing your altar bells. No, Father, I mean more like tending to the organ pipes. I should stop talking. So we know that Sister Meredith has been around. And you can also see that one of the candles has gone off. Those represent our action points. So if the dialogue is not enough for you to gather enough information, that's where the holy tools come in play. So we have the holy water and the burning bush. Essentially, we use them on the character. The holy water checks for gluttony, wrath, or lust. So if we use them on Meredith and she signals a bodily reaction, we know she has sinned one of those 3 sins. And since I'm already suspecting her of committing lust, I will choose the holy water since the burning bush doesn't check for that. So I'm going to do this now. There, yes, the sin resonates within them. So she has committed one of the 3 sins. And this, together with the dialogue, is enough for me to be pretty sure about my judgment, and now I will pass it, essentially. Their soul is cleansed, they go now in peace. So we know we have done the right judgment. Now the next character comes in, and on the top left we can see that 2 more characters are left. I will just speed through them. You can play the game later on and find more about them out. This is Barnabas. This was Barnabas. This is Jeb. Okay, this is the end of the round. Now the priest goes home, and in his free time he reads the newspaper. They are the articles about, you can read up on the articles of the people of the day you have judged. Essentially, there's also an article about Meredith. It just says that her sisterhood is very sad about missing her. But now you might ask what would be in the newspaper if you let her live. Or you may ask what the fates of the other people are, or even your own fate. If you want to find out about that, you can again play the game later on. So yeah.
So the heart of our game are the 10 unique characters that you encounter in the span of 3 rounds. Since the setting of the game is southern USA in the beginning of the last century, we didn't only design the characters and write them in a way to represent different social groups, ages, different sins, but also to reflect the common classic archetypes of the so-called Southern Gothic genre. While you try to uncover their past and decide their future, do enjoy the splendid visuals provided by our character artist Mara, who is hopefully watching the stream right now.
Yeah, and the game world. The booths and the props were also designed to reflect the time that we are in. Our inspiration was Carpenter's style, so you can see a lot of wooden structures. For the booth, we went for the open ceiling look to also kind of reinforce the feeling of public judgment and the moral exposure. And all the props, you can see they share this semi-realistic approach to fit and kind of frame our characters and the overall tone of the game.
Okay, so now we go to the tech approach. I aim for the modular system in which it is very easy to add new content like characters or rounds. They're also at one centralized place, so it made it very easy for a writer, for example, to add a lot of content quickly. I also aim to make systems that complement each other and build up on top of each other. For example, in companion to the characters, we have the newspaper, which displays their fate. Yes.
We measured the success of the project by the emotional involvement of the players. So we were equally delighted to hear both points of view. Some players found that killing people in the middle of the church is tremendous fun. Some people found that it's a great toll on their conscience, but the visuals of the game were pretty much universally praised. A number of players wished for a bit of expansion, so they wanted more complex stories with increasingly higher stakes, and they wanted more fun holy tools that could be applied to the sinners.
Yeah, so for our project takeaways and methodology, at the beginning we had the fluctuating team composition that led to affect our scope and also planning. That's why we need to have some compromises and prioritize what was essential for our game and what we could let go. And another key takeaway was to have a clear distinction between conceptual phase and production phase. On the other hand, it ensured that we had a clear, a strong vision of how the game should look like, but at the same time, it led to us having a more intense production phase at the end. And I think the most important key takeaway is to find out how your team works the best. And for us, it was sprinting and also time tracking. And yes, I think, yeah, we did great. And for the last slide, I am inviting you to play our game at Mensa later this day. And you can also play our game on itch.io. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to our final presentation of our game Wizards, and we'll just start with the trailer. Okay, did you ever want to battle your friends in an epic match of magic darts? Well, I hope so, because in Wizards you can do that. You can use your wizard skills to sabotage your opponents and adjust to the wildly increasing challenges that are presented by the moving dartboard. After this, the team will talk about the project a bit, and I will introduce them now. So we had Zatak, our production manager, Simon, our 3D artist and sound manager, Zeko, our 2D and 3D artist and game designer, and Max, our programmer and game designer, me, the creative and art director, and Joshua and Raphael, the soundies.
Yeah, let's talk about game design a bit. Since everybody knows the real-world version of darts, and since we're making a party game, we wanted to keep the barrier of entry as low as possible, but we also thought that we should minimize skill gaps and increase the exciting and fun moments that you have while playing normal darts. So we decided to gamify and spice the real-world version of darts up a bit, and we did that mainly with our 3 techniques. The first one being that you can strengthen your player character by drinking enchanted magical potions to gain an extra foe or other special abilities. And as well as that, we decided to actually make the board an active component of the game itself by having like a kind of roguelike aspect of it changing every round and getting more difficult from time to time. And as well as making the darts more magical and special, and also let the players interact with each other with those special darts, and having more interactivity than in the real-world version of darts.
Considering our environment, we knew from the beginning basically that we wanted it to be set in this gloomy basement bar where you usually play darts. And we also knew we wanted to go for a stylized look. But we didn't want to lean too much into that medieval fantasy stylized thing, and wanted to go for more of a modern time period. So we kind of set up a rule in the environment that each object either has to contribute to the basement bar feeling, like glasses, jugs, the tables and everything, or it has to be contemporary technology like the TV screen where you see your score, or the boombox in the background where the music's coming from, or it has to be of a magical element. For example, also the TV screen which is floating up and down, the candles floating up and down, or the darts, for example, also floating or having some magical property like electricity or something. Or it can even be multiple of those things together. Yeah, then we started by constructing low polys, blockouts, first looking at a lot of reference of real world bars, especially from older time periods like from the 80s or 90s. And we block outed the whole environment first to get a feeling of everything. And also one important thing, we set up an asset list and prioritize things. So for example, the most important thing I guess about our game would be the dartboard and the darts. So that has the highest priority, so we could actually start implementing that into the gameplay. Yeah, we then worked with the high polys, which is just mostly the wood grain you can see here, because we didn't want to add too much detail and too much noise to it, because we wanted, like we said, wanted to go for the stylized look and keep it more simple. And then we textured everything in Substance Painter, which mostly drives the look from our environment, with the wood grain from the tables and the walls and stuff. There we just use basic materials and a lot of grunge maps, a lot of smart materials as well, and went for a lot of curvature maps, which highlight the curvatures. And we also used a lot of the blur slope effect to kind of have these big blotches of colors that don't add too much detail in little spots, but overall have big color variation of these models. And yeah, then we put everything into Unity, adjust the lighting, have other shaders like you see on the dartboard, the numbers, or the magical effect beneath it that's making it float. And yeah, just put everything together.
Yeah, and then we can talk a bit about the characters. We got the gnome and the wizard, which are the main characters that we find in the bar. We started with simple concepts, then later on started sculpting. We try to keep very simple silhouettes, so the characters are instantly recognizable just by their outline. And because they're going to be mostly in the background, since the main focus of the game is the board, they're easily recognizable in the background. Then we, after sculpting, went to retopologizing the characters in Blender. They were, as I said, trying to keep simple shapes. And then we did the texturing and the animations. This is a rendered view of how they're supposed to look in the game, and some stuff that they do around.
So, if not already mentioned, we made this game for the Nintendo Switch because we loved how the Joy-Cons worked. You just like throw the darts like this. It's awesome. For the game engine, we use Unity, F mode for sound. For art, we use Blender and Krita and ZBrush. And we made some custom materials on Designer and Substance Painter. So this is one of the many assets we have in the game. We do the conceptualizing and modeling in Blender. The UV layout is also done in that. And then we put our custom materials in Substance Painter and then finalize in VFX Unity. Okay, so for our project management, we use Miro for everything, for our tasks, for our mood board, for our roadmap, and it works great. And I think we were the only team that never saw the project rooms. We worked remotely all the time, so Discord was great help in communicating within ourselves.
Yeah, user testing, as a lot of you have also said before, was very important, especially for us with the motion controls for our darts. We started very early on that because we wanted to have it be predictable and actually fun, and it's not easy to tweak that. And yeah, with that, it was also pretty obvious for us that it doesn't take a lot of perfection, so to say, to make it fun already, because in the beginning, even though it wasn't really predictable, we and a lot of you also had a lot of fun already with throwing the darts. It's kind of like this addictive feeling, I would say, being like, okay, just one more throw, I want to hit the bullseye now. So that helped us a lot with the user testing, just doing continuous user testings, and of course like other stuff for the environment and for visual feedback. For example, hey, I want to see the number I actually scored, so we added visual feedback. It's like a hit marker basically, where you see, okay, I hit double 16 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and for our key takeaways, as we said, the play testing was very crucial to the development, but also clean design also simplifies adding features and building on top of other stuff. So during the programming stage, we try to keep it pretty cleanly organized, so then we could add more stuff as we kept going along. And we'd like to welcome you to come and shoot some darts with us at our booth.
Check.
Hello everyone, thank you for watching animation. I hope you enjoyed it, and now that you've seen the world we have created, I want to talk a little bit more about the process and ideas behind it. But before we get into too much detail, let me introduce you to our team. I'm Anna, I'm the character animator, production manager, and storyboard artist.
Hey everyone, I'm Boge, I'm the environment artist, cinematographer, and art producer.
I'm Kuba, the character artist, the production manager, and the environment animator.
And I am Jean, the character animator, sound manager, and storyboard artist alongside Anna. And we would really like to thank our amazing soundies, Raphael and Josh, for creating the music and sounds of our film.
Two individuals, two approaches, but one common goal. While one uses the heart, the other one uses the logic. To save a world that feels what they feel, two scientists have to stop clashing and start connecting.
And welcome to the world of Planet Dualis, an alien planet that reacts and corrupts due to the protagonist's conflicts. The entire planet and the plant they've been researching in their lab are all connected, and the more they argue, the more the planet and the plant collapses. The lab is their current home, where they're trying to save an alien plant from dying out. They're spending day and night, full focus, restless, to figure out a solution, and they really continuously experiment in the name of science and good of mankind. Lucien is a cold, cynical scientist who is very obsessed with his research and just his research alone. He's a very results and by the numbers type of guy and really gets distraught when you disrupt his experiments. Unlike Astra, she is generally loving and kind of all things nature. She really enjoys making discoveries and nurturing those discoveries whenever she gets a chance to, and never thinks mostly about the results or numbers at all. She is a space pilot and accomplice to Lucien, but often gets to his nerves due to her free-spirited nature.
So about the design approach. So when creating a world and environment that's totally fictional, you would still want the viewer to get a sense of familiarity. Otherwise, the space just feels random. And when we divide this environment and space into a small, medium, and big objects, each of these categories play a different purpose. So first, the micro props, they're there first to elevate the storytelling. As we can see on the left side, on Lucian's side, it's rather unkept, overgrown. He's solely and fanatically focused on his experiment. Rather on the right side, we can see Astra's side is still a bit hectic, but in a different manner. It's chaotic and there's more energy to it because the items are constantly moved around and at least her flowers are not decayed. Also, the design approach for each prop was it had to be functional and familiar, meaning that the mechanics had to work. The viewer, you never actually get to see how it works, but it should make sense. So the bottle twisting or the spyglass rotating, we don't really get to see this in real world. The medium props, they're there to elevate the personality of the whole scene. For example, the furniture is the main star here, and it pushes that Art Deco geometrical shapes together, mixing with the tall Victorian era proportions and the Art Nouveau metallic curved micro details. As for the big props, they're there basically to ground the whole foundation together. And for example, the large oval window in the background, those balconies, the very curved flat walls, these geometrical shapes create this sort of asymmetrical symmetry where it directly guides the viewer in the middle where everything is happening, for example, the plant. Now, for total contrast, the outside, here we're dealing with big, large, and massive props. And the tree being the massive prop meant that the level of details had to be consistent even up close. So the closer the camera angle was, the texture had to be also dense. And about the texturing process, first, every single item was modeled and sculpted in Blender. And then it was textured in Substance Painter using a 2D-inspired hand brush painterly approach. And then back to Blender, the normal maps were broken up using a shader, so basically the reflection stays in one place and elevates that 2D-inspired world in a 3D setting. And finally, a lot of lights in each shot were baked into each object for the rim lights and outshine, just for the sake of the continuity of eye candiness.
As for the animation part itself, I want to talk a little bit more about personality in motion. I want to show you today 4 clips in which both characters do the exact movement, but in slightly different ways. On the left, we can see Astra, who moves rather elegantly, soft, and with a little bit of hesitation, while on the right, we see Lucien, who's very fast, very rigid, and even coming off as overly confident. Even though both characters do the exact same movement, they tell different stories.
In terms of physicality and weight, we prioritized proper posing, weight, balance shifts, and timing of our animations to sell the believability of their conflict. The idea was to make them go back and forth and physically interact with each other to show their differences, personality, and how they conflict with each other.
Now on to the characters. We use the uniform color palette, as you can see on Astra's jacket, which is green. Meanwhile, Lucien's jacket is white. However, his shirt is green and her shirt is white. We put a bunch of those little details that are reversed or swapped into the design of those. And that's how we came up with them. Since they are from the same agency, they kind of need to have similar uniforms, so we cannot go too different. However, they still are two completely opposite humans. That's why we decided on those. For the main plant, as you can see there, slightly with the opacity, we have the yin and yang symbol. And since the plant is the medium that connects both of our protagonists, this symbol fits perfectly to there. And that's why it's shape-wise inspired. For the process, we just did rough concepting with just sketches, with just bare line art. Then the modeling and texturing was also done in Substance Painter. Then for our technical approach, we used wrinkle maps to push the visuals of our clothes even further, as you can see on the knee that Astra is pointing towards to, or on the armpit of Lucien. And for the environment animation, we used modifiers plus geonodes, sometimes even shape keys, depending on what was needed. The flower, for example, is only geonodes, meanwhile the root is curve and shader nodes, and also normal modifiers. For the key takeaways, the first one is that we test features before relying on them. That is most importantly because when we share the files around, they need to be finally rendered, and if something's missing there, then it's a bun. Then everything must have a reason to exist. Just like Boga explained, the designs need to have a functionality, otherwise viewers might not get what it is. And the most important one is that we show, don't tell. That's why we have no dialogue, and we show the whole story visually. Now, speaking of visuals, if you want better visuals than this HD beamer, come visit us at our booth. In the 4K quality, it's a massive hitter. And with that being said, thank you.
Hello, I am Clara. I'm the tech artist, 3D character artist, and also project manager of this game.
Hi, I'm Tani. I was responsible for the environment, UI, and lighting.
Hi, I'm Gilmore. I'm the programmer, the composer / music producer and level designer for this game.
I'm Liz, the vision keeper and art director.
My name is Anastasia. I was the production manager, concept artist, and 3D generalist for this game. We also had a great soundie, Leander, who sadly couldn't make it today.
This game, Fishy Business, is a 4-player co-op, local co-op game where you use platform elements to solve puzzles together with your friends. Who are those, you might ask? Well, they are the Fish Mafia.
Yeah, like you may already guess, the story of Fishy Business revolves around 4 Fish Mafia members who invade a restaurant hotel disguised as guests with only one mission in their mind. They need to save their godfather, who was brutally kidnapped by none other than the Pierre Pêcheur, an evil French guy, obviously, who turned his own restaurant into a puzzle-filled trap, trying to get some more side dishes to his main course. What he didn't account for, however, is the power of friendship and also teamwork, as well as the strong family bond that the mafia has.
So now let's jump right into gameplay. Should we play? What? No. This is that's the wrong build. Moved. Okay, then it should be fine. Hopefully. I mean, we are missing the exe and everything in there. It's just the integration that should be in the folder.
So do we
can just do the backup then. Good.
Okay.
Well, due to technical difficulties, we'll have to watch the video instead of playing it, unfortunately. So, as you can see, our 4 players are being dropped into this restaurant, and now they begin to walk around aimlessly, it seems. What is that up there? A cough cough. And when you are there, our godfather is telling you what is going on right now, and he has been kidnapped. So you have to find the hooks in order to free him. Okay, this is gonna take a bit because we just skip forward a bit. Took a little for that hook to be pulled down. Yep, a little longer. Yep, yeah. We're gonna get there eventually. Don't worry. Almost. Come on, green. Oh, now we just skipped it. Okay. Well, as you can see, the door's open now, and now you can actually explore the restaurant. And yes, that's where this one stops.
Thank you for your attention. So here comes the environment. This was our visual target, but during the project, we came up with 4 different areas. The first area is the entrance where you start the game and you have the mini trailer and you actually learn how to jump and use the controller. Then we have the kitchen and the spooky storage room. Then we have the precious room of the chef, where he takes care of all of his awards and achievements, and then a very luxurious lounge for very important people and a wine cellar.
Now let's get to the characters of this game. Their names are Worm, Giovanni, Barb, and Jighead. They're named after fish hook types. And this is them, and I modeled them in Blender and also rigged in Blender. And here you can see I reused the same rig for all 4 characters, which was very nice because it saved a lot of time, because I animated just one rig and then applied it to the different body types.
And you can also see here I used inside of Unity the Dynamic Bones add-on to add this very nice jiggle animation. Yeah.
Let's go over the technical approach. Because the gameplay itself was rather simple, I focused on the character controller, ensuring that it feels smooth to play. And to have that, I have a friction stat. And I will show you what happens if you have no friction. For example, when you crouch, yeah, you slide, shocker. And to actually now control the player, you need friction. So with friction, you can now walk, right? Very exciting. So now we have horizontal covered. Let's talk about vertical. The jump, if you hold down the button, you jump higher. If you just press shortly, you do a short hop. And that is because whenever you let go of the jump button, the engine, I apply a downward force in order to make the jump more controllable for the player. Now let's talk about the main mechanic, the grabbing. Whenever you grab an object, a force toward you, there's basically spawned a spring between you and the object, so there's a force from you to the object and from the object toward you, so you pull the object. But if you don't have friction, you will get pulled toward the object. And because you can grab layers, you can do things like this. And now with the previous thing we've talked about, the friction and the moving, we can do something I call the trebuchet, which in practice looks something like that.
Yes, for our methodological approach, we made use of frequent in-person meetings to boost the motivation, as well as divided management in short and long term, which in our case worked out pretty well. And for the organizational setup, we use WhatsApp for quick communication, Jira for the sprint planning, and Discord for updates, feedbacks, and occasional online meetings.
During the project, we had so many user testing, but it was important for us to know that if the players find this game fun and entertaining. At first, they were finding it entertaining, and at the end, it was still entertaining and fun. So this was a great achievement for us. But we also had great feedback, such as we needed some adjustment on the controller, on the camera view, and also in general, players liked pulling each other around or the objects, and they liked messing around with the environment, and in general, as I said at the beginning, it was very entertaining and fun. We also learned a lot. We need to do lots of user testing, we need to have a structure, and we need to do lots of research before starting. And now it's time for you to join our booth, not because we have snacks and stickers, but because we have a godfather that needs to be saved.